Hey, tonight we slip into the damp forests of feudal Japan, where the cicadas scream like distant alarms and the mist curls low across moss-covered stones. The moon hangs fat and pale over the treetops, and you feel the chill of secrets stirring. In the darkness, somewhere, not far from here, a figure moves without sound. Not a soldier, not a bandit, something quieter, something far more dangerous. This is the world of the ninja shadowy agents trained not just to fight, but to vanish, spy, sabotage, and survive in a world that never wanted them to exist. We're diving into the hidden lives of Japan's most feared, misunderstood, and mythologized warriors. From real assassinations to forged legends, from crude smoke bombs to political espionage, tonight's journey will peel back the veil on a part of history that is slinked along rooftops and behind rice paper walls for centuries, revealing the little known. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Press the notification bell to update many new videos. And hey, drop a comment below with your city and what time you're listening. Always fun to see who else is wandering the shadows with us now. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking the border between the seen and the unseen. Feudal Japan isn't yet unified. It's a blood-slicked chessboard of scheming daimyos, warring clans, and shifting allegiances. Castles rise and fall like sandcastles in a typhoon, while samurai posture on horseback and scream their names into battle. Something else is brewing in the underbrush. You duck beneath the low-hanging branches of a cedar tree. Far in the distance, you hear the sharp whistle of an arrow, followed by the dull thud of a body collapsing. But here, closer to the heart of Iga province, silence is more telling than noise. This place is thick with secrets. Local villagers speak in half-sentences. Children are taught not to ask. And when someone disappears, no one investigates too deeply. The first ninja shinobi aren't born in black robes. They're crafted out of necessity. Here, in the mountain valleys of Iga and neighboring Kōga, the land is hard, the people harder. Samurai battles have spilled over for decades, but the peasants here learn a different kind of war, one of patience, misdirection, and cunning. They are monks, farmers, hunters, and failed samurai who found a better way to win than by dying with honor. The term ninja won't even be widely used for another few centuries. In these days, they are shinobi no mano, those who endure. And oh, do they endure. You crouch with them in a hidden ravine beneath the wooden bridge where a passing tax official crosses. A cord is strung tightly around the stones, primitive but effective. The trap doesn't kill him. It just causes a crash loud enough to attract attention and create an opening for theft, or a message planted, or a rival clan misled. Subtle, quiet, devastating. And here's the thing, historians still argue whether the shinobi were originally warriors at all. Some say they began as mere bandits, organized only by their shared hatred of oppressive warlords. Others argue they were Buddhist monks, using their spiritual outposts as camouflage for early spy networks. Either way, what's clear is this: they didn't fight fair, and that's why they survived. One strange fact you pick up as you tread softly through a village: the locals train birds, not for hunting, but for listening. Crows and sparrows serve as sentries, natural alarms that chirp wildly at the wrong scent or shadow. That's how deep this culture of stealth goes. Even the animals are in on it, and the roads, they twist. Intentionally, maps drawn by outsiders never match the actual routes. Bamboo groves grow so thick they can be shaped like walls. Villages vanish behind hedges overnight. You begin to realize the landscape itself has been weaponized. Tonight, as you sit cross-legged inside a low hut carved into the hillside, the village elder tells you that no one here uses their real name. Not even him, you chuckle, thinking. It's paranoia, but then he hands you a small dagger with an obsidian blade, no inscription, no markings. This belonged to your father, he says. Wait, what? You stare. But before you can ask, he's gone. Just slipped behind the paper wall like smoke. You look around and realize something else eerie. There are no lights in the windows, no footsteps. Outside, no dogs barking. This place knows how to disappear. And now, so do you. You lean back, the hush of the forest pressing close like a second skin. Already, your heartbeat has slowed to match the rhythm of this world. Because here, noise is danger, and visibility, that's a death wish. One last thing, keep your sandals by the bed. Strap your knife across your chest, and never trust a stranger who smells too clean. That's probably perfume masking poison. Tomorrow you'll begin your training, but tonight, the shadows just taught you their first lesson. Silence is sharper than any blade. You wake up before dawn, the kind of cold that bites under your robe and makes your breath hang like ghost smoke in the air. The ground beneath you is packed dirt, barely warmer than the outside. There's no rooster call, no temple bell, the faint shuffle of straw sandals and the whisper of wind through red mats. Outside, the village stirs, not with bustling commerce or temple chants, but with silent routines sharpened by centuries of survival. A boy your age balances on a single bamboo stalk over a stream, eyes closed, arms out. A woman twice your size dashes up a sheer incline, barefoot and burdened with firewood. No one looks proud. No one claps. This is just ... Breakfast warm, dash up. Welcome to the training grounds of the shinobi and... No, it's nothing like the martial arts movies. You're handed a bundle of black cloth and a rice ball that tastes like sand and wet hay. The man who gives it to you doesn't introduce himself. He just nods toward the trees and vanishes. The first lesson: don't wait for instructions. They won't come. You begin walking, then crawling, climbing, sprinting, and rolling with understanding why, but every task is a test. Every misstep is noted. If not punished, you slip on moss. Suddenly, a wasp nest accidentally falls nearby. You step too loudly on a wooden plank. A bucket of cold water from nowhere. This is tough love, ninja edition, and the weapons. Oh, they're not what you expect. Your first tools are a piece of charcoal, a mirror shard, and a pebble wrapped in paper. You squint at them, expecting some riddle. But these are real tools of the trade. A charcoal stick to leave hidden signals. A mirror to spy around corners. A pebble to distract a guard or signal an ally. Still dreaming of sleek katanas and gravity-defying flips. Forget it. Real shinobi training begins with fear. Not of enemies, but of exposure today. You're learning how to become invisible in the woods. You bury yourself in leaves for 2 hours while mosquitoes stage a blood drive on your face. You're not allowed to swat them. Movement equals failure. Then you practice crawling under a layer of cloth without disturbing the dust on top. Then you run laps, but not in circles. You must leave no trace. Broken twigs are sins. Displaced pebbles, disgrace. One of the elders whispers, the best ninja walks through a garden without bending a single blade of grass. Mainstream history books often gloss over this. Shinobi weren't just warriors. They were human ghost stories. And while modern historians love debating when the real ninja traditions began, some say the 15th century, others claim roots in ancient Yamato folklore, it's clear that by the late Sengoku period, entire families were raising their children like this. And those children, they didn't play tag. They played disappear or die by midday. You're led to a shallow river and told to swim against the current with your hands tied. The point isn't strength, it's breathing. Staying calm when your body is screaming. One kid hyperventilates and is dragged out, coughing and crying. No one comforts him, but later, someone quietly leaves dried plums near his door. Soft compassion off the record. In the evening, you're blindfolded and dropped in a forest clearing. You're told to find your way back to camp before moonrise. There are tripwires, there are snares. There is a wild boar which no one warns you about, by the way. But worst of all, there are no voices, just the woods, just the dark. You stumble, you curse, you swear something touched your neck that felt wrong. But finally, you find your way back, scratched and muddy, to the faint glow of a campfire. You made it, and that earns you your first real lesson in Ninpo, the shinobi way. The elder, still anonymous, finally speaks. He tells you that real strength isn't in the sword or the fist. It's in the patience to wait 3 hours in a well. It's in the guts to eat a live frog to survive. Yes, they do that often. Protein. It's in the humility to walk past your enemy without being noticed, or worse, noticed and forgotten. Victory is not the loudest cheer, he says. It's the last whisper. You nod, though you're half asleep, your head resting against your knees. He leans in and slips something into your pocket. It's a tiny pouch of powder. Blow this in the face of someone chasing you, he says with a smirk. It's made from ground pepper and flower spores. They'll cry like a noble with a stubbed toe. You can't help but laugh, and he chuckles too. Rare that. A joke from a shinobi master. Must be your lucky day. Then he points to the stars. Remember them, he says. They don't lie, navigating by the stars. Using owls for alarms. Leaving no trace even in sand. These are your tools now. And fringe tidbit of the day. Shinobi legend says some could catch arrows mid-flight. Is it true? Doubtful. But maybe you'll be the first. Just don't try it yet. You like your fingers attached. As you lie in the hut that night, your muscles ache in places you didn't know existed. Your palms are torn. Your pride's worse. But inside, something's glowing like an ember beneath ash. You haven't become a ninja, but you've stopped being someone else's shadow. The next morning, you awake to the sound of a sparrow tapping rhythmically on the wooden beam above your head. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. Not a coincidence. That's the signal to follow. The bird flutters off, and you, still sore from yesterday's boot camp, disguised as survival training, rise and trail the creature through dew-drenched rice fields and narrow footpaths that twist like old kanji brushstrokes. You're heading toward Kōga, the twin heart of shinobi culture. Kōga province lies east of Iga, separated by forested hills, and the occasional grumpy badger, though they share the same profession. Iga and Kōga ninja have different temperaments, like cousins who grew up in rival temples. Iga shinobi are known for their rigid discipline and monk-like secrecy, while Kōga warriors are tricksters by trade, more likely to throw a fake scroll or impersonate a drunk merchant than sit quietly in a swamp for 6 hours. You arrive at a hidden compound nestled in a misty valley, its roof low, grass-covered, practically a hill with a front door. Inside, Kōga shinobi greet you not with bows, but with riddles. One asks you to find the flaw in his poem. The other challenges you to notice what's missing from the tea tray he presents. Answer wrong, and you might get dunked into the koi pond out back. It's not decorative. It's full of leeches. You pass, barely, which earns you the right to observe the Kōga way. Here training focuses on infiltration over endurance. You watch as a young shinobi slinks beneath a palanquin, clings like a spider to its undercarriage, and emerges several streets later without a sound. Another student practices mimicking drunk villagers, complete with off-key singing and staggering gait. Then someone releases a chicken into the dojo, and you think it's an accident, till the trainees start reacting to it like a living obstacle. Chickens, your new mentor grumbles, see everything. Here's your mainstream historical fact for the night: Kōga and Iga ninja weren't just folk legends. By the 15th century, these two regions had formed organized, clan-based shinobi communities known as Iki. They operated with surprising autonomy, governed by councils, and even issued documents outlining acceptable missions. That's right, ninja had paperwork, and while scholars agree the Kōga-Jiga rivalry helped hone their craft, historians still argue whether they truly cooperated when war arrived, if internal competition sabotaged their survival later on. But for now, you witness a fragile truce. Both clans have their specialties. Kōga prefers slow poison and clever impersonation. Iga favors sabotage and escape artistry. You watch them trade techniques reluctantly, suspiciously, but effectively. There's one skill both value above all: blending in. A shinobi who stands out is a shinobi soon buried. You're given your first disguise. It's not dramatic. No black pajamas. Just the plain clothes of a wandering monk. Sandals, robe, shaved patch on your head. Add a prayer bead necklace, and you're invisible to the authorities. Nobody suspects a praying man of slipping poison into the teacups of corrupt officials, which says more about officials than monks, really, at dusk. You're paired with a senior trainee named Seio. She's about your age, sharp-eyed, and far too calm for someone holding a throwing spike. She teaches you how to walk without leaving. Track something about shifting your weight through your toes. She also shows you how to rap your voice, speaking so that echoes mask the direction. While practicing, she shares a tidbit most don't know. Many kunoichi female ninja were trained to infiltrate as servants, performers, or concubines. One famous method: Mizugumo, or water spider sandals, were supposedly used to walk across ponds. The reality, they sank fast, but the myth was so strong, it distracted guards from the real swimmers underwater. You ask Seio if she's ever used a she just laughs. Why walk on water when it's easier to hide under it? By now, your legs ache again, but your mind buzzes. You've begun to see how two schools of thought-rigid Iga and mischievous Kōga can form a full spectrum of stealth. Together, they make the ninja not just a warrior, but a concept, a ghost with infinite faces. Back at camp, over a silent meal talking wastes energy, you're handed a scroll. It lists the 7 core ninja virtues: patience, flexibility, humility, precision, resourcefulness, silence, and amusement. You pause at the last one. The elder catches your eye and shrugs. If you can't laugh at a daimyo slipping on a wasabi-less sandal, what's the point? Fair. As the night deepens, you're invited to participate in a joint ritual. Iga and Kōga shinobi gather around a fireless circle, cloaked in moonlight, and each recites a lie they once told that saved a life. It's oddly moving. Some are funny, some are tragic. One girl admits she pretended to be a ghost to scare off a band of soldiers. Another disguised herself as a plague victim. Everyone clapped at that one. Bold move, and for your own lie. You say you're not scared. No one calls you on it, but they all nod. You lie back under the stars, warm from shared silence. Iga and Kōga may have their differences, but tonight, you feel the rare peace of belonging to something ancient, hidden and deeply human. Tomorrow, you'll face your first mission, but tonight, you're one step closer to becoming the shadow they all fear and respect. The night air is still as a held breath, and you're awake before the morning mist lifts. Your sandals are already laced, your hair such as remains if it is tied tightly. There's no bell, no trumpet, no announcement of what's coming next. Just the glint of the sun barely breaking over the ridgeline as a senior shinobi hands you a scroll without a word. Your first real mission. Your fingers hesitate as you unwrap the silk cord. Inside, a crude map, a name you don't recognize, and a small charcoal sigil that means observe, do not interfere. Classic, you're not the star of the show tonight. You're the hidden stagehand making sure the spotlight lands where it should. The target is a castle outpost several ridges away, nestled into the side of a hill like a tumor. Your job? Get close. Watch. Memorize the guard rotations, food deliveries, and entry points. No sabotage, no contact. Definitely no murder. You checked, twice. Still, your heart's thudding like a war drum in your ribs. You remind yourself. No fear, or rather, fear is fine, so long as it doesn't control your hands. You're not going alone. Sayo joins you. Still chewing on a pickled plum, completely unbothered. She grins and pulls a thin strip of oiled cloth from her sleeve. Mouthguard, she says, jamming it between her teeth. Keeps you from gasping when you panic. You nod, slipping one in. It tastes like tree bark and shame. Together, you move, not run, not walk. Flow down the forest trail, over a narrow river by climbing an overhead branch. Through fields where farmers glance up but say nothing. Kōga territory, and they know better than to ask questions. Your disguise is simple, to wandering. Pilgrims carrying a prayer board and a sack of herbs. Nobody looks twice, but as you near the outskirts of the castle's shadow, the real challenge begins. You split up. Seo takes the west approach. You circle to the east. The terrain is brutal. Jagged rocks, shifting gravel. A cliff edge you barely skirt by clinging to the roots of a gnarled pine. One false move and you'll be painting the valley red dot. You reach the overlook just as the moon climbs high enough to cast the outer wall in pale silver. Below you, guards 12 by your count, rotating in pairs. 2 with torches, 1 with a dog that sniffs at the air and growls at nothing, probably you. Great dot, you begin sketching the pattern in your head. Guard shifts every 3 hours. Inner. Courtyard has 5 exits. 1 gate left slightly ajar when the cook arrives, probably for waste removal. That's your opening. Not now, but someday. Then you spot something odd. A servant girl, too tall, moving too confidently. She heads toward the officers' quarters, but ducks behind a shed when no one's looking. She emerges minutes later, clothes slightly changed. Hair adjusted. You know that trick. She's shinobi, a different clan, a rival agent. Your orders say, Observe only, but what if she knows you're here? You hold your breath and slow your heartbeat. She glances up once, right toward your hiding spot. Not a long look, just a flicker. She disappears into the dark. Historians still argue whether ninja missions were this elaborate. Some claim most were petty theft or arson jobs. Others insist there were entire ninja networks embedded in castles, working for years undetected. You just lived the debate. Now comes the hard part. Getting out. You start back. Your return route is different always. Always should be. But something's wrong. You spot fresh footprints in the mud. Not yours. Not Seo's. Someone's following. Your training kicks in. You double back. Douse your scent with crushed mugwort. Scatter pebbles to mask your trail. Then you climb into a hollowed tree and wait. Minutes pass, then footsteps. A figure moves past tall, carrying a blade not quite like yours. A lowland ronin, perhaps, or hired muscle. Either way, not friendly. You wait another 20 minutes just to be safe, when you finally rendezvous with Seo. She's already lounging beside a stream, sipping from a bamboo flask like she'd just returned from a poetry recital. She raises a brow. You look like you fought a bear. You resist the urge to throw a pinnacone at her. You return to base by sunrise. No celebration, no formal report, just a nod from your superior and a bowl of soup that tastes better than anything you've ever eaten. One of the elders passes behind you and murmurs, "You didn't interfere." Good. Mainstream history fact for your journal. During Japan's Sengoku period, roughly 1467 to 1600, warring states often used ninja for spying, arson, and psychological warfare. These missions, quiet, sometimes weeks long, were more common than flashy assassinations. But here's your quirky tidbit. Some ninja disguised themselves as temple drummers, not just to sneak past gates, but to signal others through coded rhythms. Beat for danger, 2 for success, 3 for bring snacks. Probably, as you crawl into your bedding that night, you feel older, not in years, but in where. You saw something real today. You weren't a trainee anymore. You were the shadow, and the shadow saw you back. The next day arrives with a curtain of fog so thick you could carve shapes in it. No sun, no birdsong, just the hush of damp silence. It feels like the world is holding its breath, perfect weather for the reveal of the shinobi's most peculiar and ingenious weapons. You're summoned to the central dojo, which is really more of a covered courtyard. A circle of elders wait, each cross-legged, beside a small cloth bundle. One by one, they open them. Inside, not swords, not spears, but household junk. A rice ladle, a short reed flute, a wooden comb, a folded fan, a piece of paper. You glance at Seo, who's also here today, and raise an eyebrow. She grins. You expected shuriken, cute. Today's lesson isn't about brute force. It's about psychological warfare and improvised genius, because the shinobi's most powerful weapons were often disguised as nothing at all. The first tool placed before you is a tetsubishi, spiked caltrops meant to injure pursuers. The trick: these aren't made of metal. They're baked from sharpened bamboo and soaked in nightshade oil. Lightweight, biodegradable, and painfully effective. You learn to scatter them while running, your hands flicking like a gambler tossing dice. Next, you're handed a hollowed eggshell filled with fine ash, iron filings, and ground peppermetsubushi, or eye crushers. Basically, ninja pepper. Spray. Crack it in someone's face, and they'll be coughing and clawing their eyeballs. while you're already halfway up the wall. Sayo demonstrates by breaking one over a dummy. You swear the dust dodges sideways to avoid her. One elder chuckles and hands you a paper fan. This, he says, is a blade. And a distraction. He snaps it open, and the inside gleams with thin, sharpened metal slats, used mostly by kunoichi and overly dramatic uncles. You spend hours learning the difference between utility and illusion. A kunai, yes, it can stab. But its main use is digging holes, prying open doors, or anchoring rope. That movie stuff about throwing them like darts. Not really accurate. Most shinobi didn't want to be flashy. Dead bodies raise questions. Missing documents don't. Here's a mainstream historical fact. The most famous ninja manual, Bansenshuki, compiled in the late 1600s, lists hundreds of tools, from rope ladders to noise-making crickets. It reveals a world where warfare relied more on smoke, shadows, and sleight of hand than swordplay. Think Batman's utility belt, but made of bamboo and soot. And yes, historians still argue whether some of these tools were widely used or just exaggerated. For example, did ninja really use inflatable animal bladders to float across moats? Possibly. Or is that just some 17th century LARP fantasy? Hard to say. But it sure looks funny, drawn on those ancient scrolls. Now comes the fun part, the or hand claws. These aren't for slashing, they're for climbing. You strap them to your palms and test them on a tree. The grip is terrifying. You're suddenly part cat, part madman. Within minutes, you're halfway up the dojo pillar, laughing like a bandit, until you fall, only a little. On to Sayo. You owe me rice for that, she mutters, brushing bark off her shoulder. Later, you're introduced to the Makabishi belter-cloth sash that unrolls to drop spike traps while running. One of the shinobi shows you how to wear it, like a casual accessory. He says nothing, but the sparkle in his eye suggests he's ruined many expensive sandals. You also get your hands on Koganawa, a grappling hook attached to a rope. It's not as graceful as you expect. You fail your first 3 throws, get tangled in the rope, and nearly knock over a water barrel. Everyone thinks ninjas are elegant Sayo size. You're proof they're not. Still, by dusk, you've mastered the basics. A sling made of silk that doubles as a noose. A scarf coated in resin that sticks to the mouth of any would-be shouter. A pair of wooden sandals with compartments inside to hide powders or poison. It's all so ... unassuming. You realize something profound. The ninja didn't just carry tools. They became tools. Every gesture, every breath, every ordinary item was part of the arsenal. And now for your quirky tidbit of the day. Some ninja reportedly used fireflies in tiny cages as nighttime signal lanterns. Blinking once meant danger, twice meant success. And if the firefly died, well, plan B involved setting something on fire. By the time you sit down for dinner, your mind is spinning. You expected blades and blood. Instead, you got wasps, whistles, and waxed cords. But maybe that's the point. In the world of shadows, real power lies not in brute strength, but in surprise, in silence. In the moment the enemy thinks they've caught your right, before they realize the bamboo flute in your pocket was a poison dart launcher. You slurp your soup slowly, turning the wooden spoon in your hand. A weapon, not yet, but it could be. The sky is dark velvet, stitched with stars as you press your back against a mossy boulder, breath shallow, ears tuned like a cat's. Somewhere ahead, The dull glow of lanterns filters through treetops your target. Tonight, no drills, no hypothetical. This is your first real field mission. Your assignment is simple. On paper, infiltrate a provincial tax station fortified inside a walled estate. Gather intelligence on their records and exit unseen. Not glamorous, not heroic, but essential. Corrupt officials can collapse provinces faster than samurai swords. And while nobles fight their loud wars in gold-trimmed armor, you fight yours with soot, silence, and slippery sandals. Sayo is with you, as usual. She whispers beside you, barely audible. Remember, if you're seen, you were never there. You. Nod, tug your scarf up to your nose, and the two of you split off like dancers partying mid-step. The estate looms ahead, modest by castle standards, but still surrounded by a tall wall and patrolled by bored-looking guards who don't yet know their night's about to get ... Eventful, you circle wide, keeping to the trees, and spot your opening knot-rotting section of the fence concealed by overgrown brush. Not in any official reports, not on any map. Just your luck. You crawl low, slipping into the compound's back garden. The scent of plum blossoms is overpowering. A frog croaks somewhere nearby. You freeze, then exhale. Nature always sees you first. You slink past a narrow koi pond. Its surface mirrors the moon. You avoid looking at your reflection, bad omen in some schools. Inside the estate, you can hear faint laughter, drunken voices, card games. Perfect, inside your robes is a tiny roll of TSUME-ABURA-claw oil. You drip a bit on the floor as you creep. If someone follows your steps, they'll slip. A simple but effective defense. You reach the records room. Paper scrolls lined on low shelves. Ledgers with neat, ink-stiffed pages. Names, bribes, rice shipments gone missing. All the corruption your client suspected. You memorize everything. Your eyes can drink in, knowing you'll have to regurgitate it like a nervous scribe later. You tear off a corner of one scroll just enough to prove you were here. Time to leave. But something's off. Footsteps, not yours. Not Sayo's too heavy. You flatten beneath a table just as the door creaks open. A guard? No. The footsteps are too light now, almost calculated. You risk a glance. It's the woman from the castle the other night, the one who changed clothes. Behind a shed, she's in plain clothes now, carrying a pouch. She doesn't see you, but you see her slip something into one of the ledgers, a fake name, a cover-up. Then she turns, hesitates, and vanishes just as quickly. You wait. One breath, two, gone. You slip out the way you came except. Now the koi pond looks ... different ... ripples ... A. Guards out there. You hug the shadows, but he's sharp. He sees a flicker of movement. Oi, you bolt ... through the garden, over the rotting fence crack. A loose board tears your sleeve. You don't stop. The guard is fast, blowing a whistle. You hurl a caltrop cluster behind you. He yelps. Yes. You sprint through the forest, branches clawing at your robes. Behind you, shouts. Torches. Ahead, a tiny lantern blinking once, then twice. Sayo. You. Follow her light. Veer left through a thorn-choked ravine, and finally slide behind a cluster of rocks where the two of you collapse. Panting. Well, she gasps, at least we weren't. Bored. Back at camp, you deliver the intel. You describe the layout, the ledgers, the woman. An elder listens silently, then says, "You weren't the only blade sent there. Your eyes narrow. Was she one of us? He shakes his head. Different employer, same mission. And that's when it hits you. Not all ninjas work together. You've just entered a world where one shadow steps over another, and not all of them walk away. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Ninja missions often involved espionage against fellow spies. Feudal Japan wasn't just a battlefield, it was a chessboard, and every daimyo wanted more than just territory. They wanted secrets, and they were willing to pay anyone to get them. Which leads to your quirky tidbit. Some ninja reportedly trained rats to chew through ropes or paper barriers during missions. Useful, maybe. Noisy, definitely. You start wondering if that squeaking sound last night was coincidence. And historians still argue whether ninja teams actually operated in pairs like you and Seo, or if that's modern storytelling fluff. Some sources hint at solo operatives only. Others suggest duos were common for both backup and witness validation. Either way, you're glad she was there. As the adrenaline drains from your system, your hands still shake, but your mind steady tonight. You were in the fire, and you didn't burn. You fade into your bedroll just as the birds begin chirping, again mocking you with their cheerful ignorance of how close you came to never hearing them again. You smile anyway, because the first mission is behind you, and your next one. That's when the real danger begins. You're ankle deep in cold mud, crouched behind a decaying torii gate at the edge of a sleepy village. Rain spits from the sky in sudden bursts, like the heavens are arguing with themselves. Somewhere ahead, voices echo off wooden walls, clipped, sharp as unsheathed blades. Tonight's assignment isn't stealthy. It's spiderweb diplomacy. You're here to spy on a meeting between rival daimyo envoys, each backed by small platoons of soldiers itching for an excuse to draw steel. But what really matters isn't their words. Who brought which guards? Who shifts uncomfortably during key phrases, and who doesn't show up at all? Sayo, single quotes, is not with you this time. You're solo. You feel it in your spine. Your cover is simple. An old herbalist's apprentice, wandering for trade. Your props: a basket of dried mushrooms, a splint of incense, and the kind of limp posture that screams no threat here. As you shuffle past the front of the tea house, you steal glances from beneath your rice hat. A man in lacquered armor stands at the door, rise like dull blades, fingers twitching at the hilt of his katana. He doesn't even glance your way. Perfect. You slip into the alley behind the tea house, then into the crawl space beneath the floorboards. Cramped, wet, riddled with beetles. You settle your breathing, press your ear to the wood, and listen. Inside, voices rise and fall like waves crashing in the dark. We demand 30 koku of rice as restitution, growls one. That territory was gifted to us by Lord Mori himself, says another. This is not negotiable. You hear the snap of a fan. Footsteps, silence, but it's the silence that tells you everything. Historians still argue whether ninjas ever sat in on meetings like this. Some say that's romantic nonsense. Others point to texts like the Shinobi Hidden, which describes spycraft techniques for eavesdropping through bamboo walls and underground chambers. You're living the footnote now for the twist. You hear a name you weren't expecting your employers. One envoy says it offhandedly, casually, as though it means nothing. Of course, Lord Kawaguchi will be pleased. He's already received a ledger. Wait, the ledger you just retrieved. That's not supposed to be public knowledge. which means someone leaked it. Possibly that other shinobi. Possibly someone from inside your own camp. You slide out from the crawl space with a mind racing faster than your heartbeat. You need to report this, but how? You're not done observing. You blend in with the lantern carriers outside, your sleeves rolled up to reveal ink-stained fingers. Messenger for the North Quarter, you mutter to a guard, who waves you past like your fungus. Inside, you catch a glimpse of the envoy's retinue, fancy armor, lacquered fans, soft slippers, except one. One man wears straw sandals, stiff like he's not used to the costume. Sweat beads at his hairline, even in the cold. His left hand never unclenches. That's your target. You mark his face. He's the leak. You don't engage. That's not your role tonight. You let the moment pass, ghost-like. Now for your quirky tidbit. Some ninja were trained to smell lies literally. They'd study subtle changes in sweat, breath, and even the scent of fear. Some used dried dog droppings as a masking agent for their own scent. Disgusting. Yes, but very effective if you're crawling beneath someone's floorboards. And honestly, you've smelled worse. You exit the compound just as a thunderclap rips across the sky. Rain intensifies. Footsteps splash behind. You duck into a merchant stall, but it's empty. Abandoned, the footsteps get closer. A shadow looms at the entrance. But then passes. You exhale, only now realizing your dagger was halfway drawn, when you finally return to camp, soaked and shivering. The elders are already waiting. You relay everything. The conversation, the betrayal, the sandals. One elder just sighs. We suspected, but now we know. They don't say what they'll do. You don't ask. That's the shinobi way. Here's your mainstream historical fact to mull over as you dry off. During Japan's Sengoku period, lords didn't just rely on brute force to maintain power. Espionage was a must. Ninja networks became the hidden veins of information, and political meetings were often attended by more spies than samurai. The real war was waged in whispers. As you curl up near the fire, rain still drumming outside like restless fingers, you understand something deeper. Being a ninja isn't just about sabotage or sneaking. It's about understanding people, how they lie, how they flinch, and how they fall apart when they think no one's watching. And tonight, you watched, you endured, you passed. You're running no sword, no backup, no plan, just mud in your teeth, smoke in your lungs, and the unmistakable thunder of an army tearing through the valley behind you. This is not a drill. This is the infamous assault on Iga, the night the mountains bled shadow. Oda Nobunaga, lord, empire builder, and professional destroyer of dreams, has finally turned his wrath on the one place that dared to disobey, Iga province, the heart of shinobi country. You thought his armies were busy subjugating rival clans to the north. You were wrong. They came at dawn 10,000 men strong. Ashigaru foot soldiers, mounted cavalry, and siege engineers. More soldiers than trees, it felt like. They didn't come for conquest. They came for annihilation. You first hear the alarms from a hawk cry or villager's signal, coded and ancient. You'd been helping Seo harvest mushrooms in the low ravine, joking about whether the toads here were poisonous or just rude. Then everything changed. Smoke rises over the ridge. You race uphill to the lookout point, pulse hammering. In the distance, you see it. Banners bearing Nobunaga's crest, five-leafed Polonia flapping above a sea of armor. The noise is overwhelming. Drums, hooves, screams. And then, Fire. They torch everything. Fields, huts, shrines. Even the rice paddies burn. You didn't even know that was possible. You and Sayo split up immediately. She's heading for the hidden ravine paths. You're assigned to evacuation duty. Not glamorous, not exciting, but essential. You help usher elders into root cellars. Guide children into bamboo tunnels, barely wide enough for your shoulders. One old man insists on retrieving his calligraphy scrolls. You bodily lift him and toss him in like a sack of rice. Sorry, Grandpa, art dies. People don't. The shinobi haven you've trained in 4 months is now a battlefield, and not the kind you can fight on. Mainstream historical fact. In 1581, Oda Nobunaga launched a brutal, full-scale invasion of Iga province. Unlike earlier attempts, this one succeeded with terrifying efficiency. His forces razed villages, massacred inhabitants, and scattered the once thriving ninja clans. It was, essentially, a scorched earth campaign. Historians still argue whether the Iga ninja were betrayed from within. Some records hint at internal rivalries weakening their defenses. Others claim they were simply overwhelmed by sheer numbers and advanced weaponry, including imported muskets. You see both theories unfolding in real time. Some resistance fighters never show. A stockpile of smoke bombs turns out to be missing. And worst of all, the map you memorized for escape routes doesn't match reality. Paths are blocked, some tunnels collapsed. Deliberately, Sayo reappears just before nightfall, breathless, face cut and bloodied. They're using our own traps against us, she hisses. Someone told them where to find them. You don't ask who. You don't want to know. The final order comes in the form of a single word. Scatter. Your two disappear. Regroup later if ever the stronghold is lost. You're now smoke on the wind, quirky tidbit of the night. Some ninja used hollowed gourd bombs filled with hornets to confuse and scatter enemy soldiers. You don't see any hornets tonight, but someone does unleash a swarm of furious wasps by hurling a torch into a dry thatch hive. You see at least 3 samurai trip over themselves running. Small victories. You run into the forest with nothing but your knife, a water skin, and your last 2 Metsubushi powder balls. The night is thick with smoke and sobbing earth. Behind you, the sky pulses orange. The sound of screams fades into a distant, rhythmic howl. Wolves, maybe, or ghosts. You find shelter beneath the roots of an ancient tree. Too shallow to be safe, but just deep enough to hide in shadow. You hear distant footfalls, booted. Searching, you chew a leaf to kill your scent. You stay still. Still, the soldier passes. You survive, but survival doesn't feel like victory. You spend 3 days in the woods, drinking dew, eating raw roots. Once, you catch a frog and whisper an apology before biting down. No fire, no movement, no name. Finally, on the 4th night, you see the signal. 3 short flashes from a hidden lantern on the ridge. Sayo, alive. You limp toward it. Bruised, filthy, changed. She embraces you without a word. Her eyes are hollow. You suspect yours. Are worse together. You follow a new path, one you were never supposed to know. A long-forgotten escape trail carved beneath the mountains, leading to the outskirts of Kōga. You've lost your home, but not your purpose, not your name. What little of it remains, not your skill. The Iga ninja are scattered now, but shadows, once cast, don't disappear. They regroup, they adapt, they endure, just like you. You're a shadow without a home now. The fires of Iga still haunt your nostrils days later, clinging to your robes like ghost smoke. But you don't have time to mourn because mourning gets you spotted, and spotted gets you dead. You and Sia are two of the few that made it out alive. Barely now, you walk under Kōga, skies thinner trees, rockier ground. Fewer allies. You arrive at a hidden checkpoint carved into the hillside, disguised as an abandoned shrine. You knock twice on the altar stone, then once on the floorboard behind it. The trapdoor opens, and you descend into the unknown. This is where the survivors regroup, but it's not what you expected. Gone are the orderly drills, the masked instructors, the calm rhythm of life under leaves. Here, it's desperation. Ragged, ninja crouch around steaming bowls, their eyes hollow, their clothes scorched. Everyone is thinner, twitchier, quieter than you remember. Even their shadows flinch. You and Seo sit near the back of the underground chamber as names are whispered. Roll call of sorts. Many names go unanswered. One name, when spoken, makes your breath catch. Your mentor, the one who gave you the powder pouch. No reply. You feel your fists tighten. Seo lays a hand on your arm, just briefly. She doesn't say a word. She doesn't need to. The meeting begins. Senior agents argue over strategy. One suggests retaliation strike Nobunaga's supply line. Another insists on lying low, rebuilding slowly, secretly. A third bangs his fist on the table. We scatter now, we become invisible, and we never gather in one place again. And that's the consensus. The shinobi world has changed. No more central strongholds. No more banners. No more formal training camps. From now on, you're fragments of a broken mirror, reflecting, misleading, sharp when touched. Your new life is lived in halves and disguises, mainstream historical fact. After the fall of Iga in 1581, surviving shinobi were forced into secrecy like never before. Some found work with sympathetic daimyo, others posed as merchants, monks, or even actors. The era of organized ninja clans was ending. A new chapter, decentralized, mercenary, and paranoid, was beginning. Historians still argue whether the scattering of Iga was a death knell or a transformation. Some say the ninja faded into legend. Others believe this was when they became truly dangerous, because now no one could trace them to a single place or name. You're about to experience that transformation firsthand. You're sent to Kyoto, your cover, a sake delivery boy. You wear rough cotton, a slouch, and the expression of someone who gets yelled at a lot. Perfect camouflage, but behind the act, you're a courier of whispers, passing messages tucked inside bottle corks, sketching city layouts into rice paper wrappers, timing your deliveries to spy on court routines. Sayo goes elsewhere. She's chosen for a different mission. You don't ask where. That's part of the new code. Each shinobi now works alone. You live in a cramped attic above a brewer's house. The walls smell of yeast and burnt charcoal. You sleep beside a chimney to stay warm. You practice your moves in the crawl space between ceiling beams. It's enough. One day you're followed by a street thief. A kid, maybe 12. He tails you expertly through 3 alleys, 2 bridges, and 1 crowded market. You corner him, but he grins and hands you a note. He's one of ours. That's your quirky tidbit in the wake of Iga's destruction. Some ninja began recruiting children as message runners. The youngest weren't ignored. They were trained. taught to blend in as beggars, shrine boys, fishmongers, assistants. Most people ignored them. That was their greatest weapon, the note says. The merchant with the crooked tooth is not a merchant. You observe for 2 days. The man sells incense, but meets with shady visitors at odd hours. You track one of them to a temple where he drops a bundle of scrolls into a priest's hands. You don't know what the scrolls say. You don't ask. Your job is to know who passes what to whom and how fast. You pass that intel back through the sake shipment. And just like that, your mission is done. You don't get thanks. You don't get praise. You get another mission. Different town, different role, different name. You begin to feel like a dream walking through daylight. Nothing permanent, everything replaceable. You no longer flinch when someone forgets your name. Half the time, you forget it too, but the purpose burns bright. You aren't just a spy. You're the memory of a fallen world. You carry Iga's ashes in your footsteps, Kōga's humor in your sarcasm, and your mentor's pouch of powder refilled. Twice in your sleeve, the shinobi haven is gone, but the shinobi endure. You're sitting beneath a paper lantern in a roadside tea house, pretending to be absorbed in your bowl of noodles, while secretly eavesdropping on a merchant with far too much interest in provincial troop movements. Your disguise is flawless. A quiet pilgrim, dusty from the road, praying under your breath between slurps. But in your mind, something stirs an old question. One your mentors never answered. Are ninja and samurai truly enemies? You've been trained to move in shadows, to strike without warning, to vanish into the night like a gust of wind through paper. The samurai, they live by Bushido, the way of the warrior. Honor, loyalty, open combat, no hiding, no deceit. On paper, you're opposites, but reality, as always, is messier, because that merchant 2 tables over, the one wearing fine robes and boasting of a shipment of swords headed to a Tokugawa outpost. He's both a samurai in title, a shinobi in behavior. You've seen it again and again, samurai lords who hire ninja when it suits them, then pretend ninja don't exist. Or worse, have them executed afterward to tie up loose ends. Allies by day, shadows by night. It makes your head hurt later. You meet with a contact in the forest, an older shinobi, known only as Raven. He fought in Iga before the fall. His face is scarred, his hands like gnarled roots. He chuckles. When you bring up the rivalry, you think samurai are your enemies. He says, some are, some aren't. Most are just tools like us, painted prettier. He tosses a stick into the fire and leans back. You know what the difference is. Samurai shout before they kill, we whisper. Mainstream historical fact. The distinction between ninja and samurai was never absolute. Many shinobi came from low-ranking samurai families. Some shinobi later became samurai, especially under the Tokugawa shogunate. The overlap is deeper than the textbooks admit. Historians still argue whether the ninja identity was always distinct, or if it was simply a role that samurai occasionally adopted. In many cases, the same warrior might serve honorably by day and spy by night, depending on who paid him and how well. You think of your old instructor from IGA. He wore 2 blades like a samurai, bowed like one too. But at night, he taught you how to kill silently with a twig and a smile. So which was he? You're beginning to realize. The line between samurai and shinobi wasn't a line at all. It was a curtain, and people slipped behind it depending on which audience they were performing for. That merchant from earlier, You trail him for 2 days. He meets with a band of ronin, masterless samurai, camped outside a burned-out shrine. You watch as he hands them coins and a scroll. You slip into their camp hours later and retrieve the scroll. It's encrypted. You recognize the code. It's shinobi. But the signature, a samurai family crest. Funny, isn't it? That night, you meet Seo again briefly. She's been posing as a noble's maid in the north. When you share what you've learnt, she just shakes her head. People think shinobi and samurai are enemies because it's easier that way, she says. Black and white. But you and I, we live in the grey. And here's your quirky tidbit. Some samurai, especially those in charge of espionage, created shadow schools, clandestine shinobi training programs within their own retainers. These weren't advertised. They didn't appear on family trees. But they existed, and they were often more brutal than any formal ninja school. You once thought ninja were outsiders. Now you realize, ninja are adapters. When the code of honor gets in the way of results, shinobi slip through the cracks and get the job done. Sometimes that makes you a hero, sometimes a traitor. Often both, depending on who writes the history. Before Seo leaves, she hands you a folded scrap of cloth. Inside, a tiny ring, dull bronze, shaped like a chrysanthemum. What is this? You ask. She smiles. A family crest, but it's not yours. You say no, she says. It's his, referring to the samurai you just exposed. Wear it if you want to walk freely through the city for a few days. No one questions a man with the right symbol. And just like that, the truth slaps you. The enemy's crest, used to protect a ninja. You put it on, no sword drawn, no blood. Spilled dot, just borrowed identity and silent movement. You are not a samurai. You are not a peasant. You are not even you. You are whatever the mission needs, and that is power. Edo Castle looms before you like a dragon sleeping in stone. Wide moats ripple under a grey sky. Watchtowers pierce the skyline like spears. The gate guards stand stiff, draped in the Tokugawa shogunate's crest, 3 hollyhock leaves in a circling, blinking, unsmiling, armed to the teeth. You pass between them, not as a spy, but as a servant. A real one this time. You're posing as a page in a minor official's entourage. Your name forged on the scrolls. Your face lowered in deference. You carry tea. You bow when spoken to. You shuffle when dismissed. But your eyes, they never stop moving. Your mission, infiltrate the shogun's court, not to assassinate, not to sabotage, but to listen. You're here to gather whispers, watch alliances, shift, and learn who leans too close to whom during late-night discussions by the garden's koi pond. This is the pinnacle of shinobi. Espionage deep, cover inside the belly of the beast. And it's also surprisingly boring. Court life moves like molasses. You're forced to endure endless poetry readings, incense contests, and political squabbling disguised as flower arranging. But every now and then, a slip, an impatient whisper from a daimyo who thinks no one's listening, a veiled insult over a tea ceremony, a misplaced scroll that mentions troop movements near the Sendai border. Your job is to catch these sparks before they become flames, and to do that, you must vanish inside your role. You become obsessed with details. How many times does Lord Matsudra adjust his left sleeve before speaking? Which guard do the concubines trust to carry their letters? When does the cook slip outside to meet a mysterious guest in the herb garden? It's mental origami, folding, unfolding, folding again. Mainstream historical fact. The Tokugawa shogunate, 1603 to 1868, maintained a massive, complex bureaucracy full of internal politics, rivalries, and power plays. It was a goldmine for spies. The shinobi, who managed to embed themselves here, weren't running across rooftops. They were taking notes while polishing shoes, and yes, historians still argue whether actual ninja operated inside Edo Castle. Some claim it's exaggerated folklore. Others point to obscure reports of castle workers who never appeared on payroll records. You now belong to that shadow list. There's a woman here named Lady Shizune. She walks like a dancer, eyes like riverstones. You suspect she's not who she claims to be. One night, you spot her slipping into the records room using a hidden key. You tail her carefully. No footsteps, no breath. But she disappears. When you return to your quarters, there's a chrysanthemum-shaped pin resting on your pillow, the same design as the ring Seiya once gave you. A message, a warning, or a nod from a fellow ghost. Either way, you sleep with one eye open. Now for your quirky tidbit. Some shinobi, embedded in castles, were trained in fan language, silent system using the flick, open, close, and tilt of hand fans to communicate complex messages in public spaces. Entire conversations were carried on during tea ceremonies with no one else noticing. You practice the system nightly with a mirror until your hands move like they're speaking in dreams. One morning, your supervisor sends you to serve tea in a private meeting between two high officials. You kneel, hands steady, eyes lowered. They speak in euphemisms, but you understand the real meaning. They're planning a quiet purge of several minor lords. One of them mentions a name you recognize, an old shinobi contact, now posing as a trader. In Kyoto, if they move against him, your network will collapse. You can't stop it, not directly, but you can redirect it. That night, you write a forged letter, an anonymous tip to a rival lord. The kindling you need. By the end of the week, the entire plot unravels due to infighting. You saved your contact, no. One saw you do it, no one will ever thank you. But that's the point. Your invisible.sayo sends word through a silk merchant. Well played, page boy. Try not to fall asleep during tomorrow's incense ranking. You smile for the first time in weeks. It fades quickly, because being inside the castle means you're also watched. You start noticing strange patterns. Doors unlocked when they shouldn't. Papers missing. Your sandals placed differently than you remember. Someone is onto you, or testing you. Either way, you tighten your movements. Speak less. Bow lower. Blend harder. The shinobi life inside the castle isn't about blades and rooftops. It's about masks layered on masks, about outlasting suspicion, about saying nothing so convincingly that people forget you were ever in the room. You've become the silence behind the power, the shadow that listens, and when needed whispers. You glide through the quiet lanes of Kyoto, the lantern light pooling on the stone path like spilled sake. The city smells of plum blossoms and secrets. Tonight, your mission isn't infiltration, it's seduction. Not yours, hers. You're tailing a kunoichi, a female ninja, assigned to extract information from a corrupt magistrate. And you're not here to assist. You're here to learn. She's already ahead of you. Her name is I.M., and unlike you, she doesn't hide in the shadows. She commands them by day. She's a poetess' soft voice, graceful hands, laughter like wind chimes. By night, she's a whisper in the dark, a knife hidden in a love letter. You meet her in a tea house behind the Nishijin textile market. She's dressed in sapphire silk her hair adorned with a single emerald pin. You're disguised as a server, refilling her guest's cup as he brags about land taxes and peasant punishments. He has no idea. I am tilts her fan, a coded signal. You step outside and wait. Within the hour, the magistrate leaves flushed slightly, swaying, carrying a sealed letter and a perfume-laced sash. He thinks he's won. You know better. Later, I am slips the duplicate letter into your palm. It smells faintly of lotus and ink. Inside are troop numbers, supply routes, schedules. I didn't even need the poison, she says with a wry smile. Just a little flattery and a tea that makes men drowsy and generous. Mainstream historical fact, kunoichi were real. Female ninjas, trained in all the arts of deception, charm, and assassination. They were often underestimated by male targets, and that was their greatest weapon. But historians still argue whether kunoichi operated as independent agents or strictly under male command. Some documents suggest they were elite assets. Others reduce them to spies disguised as maids or geishas. The truth, as always, likely lies in between. I am. She doesn't take orders from anyone. She shows you her toolkit. A tiny dagger hidden in a hairpin. A ring laced with foxglove extract. A comb dipped in belladonna enough to cause hallucinations if left on the skin too long. It's not about killing, she says. It's about tilting the world just slightly until they fall in. She teaches you how to use perfume as a tracking method, how different oils cling to different fabrics, how a noble who claims he never visited a certain district can be caught by the scent of a blossom that only blooms in that alley. You're stunned by her precision and the cost of it. Quirky tidbit. Some kunoichi used Naguta shamisen performances to transmit information. The songs were coded specific notes, stood for directions, locations, or warnings. A wrong note might mean an ambush. A faster tempo could signal escape. One kunoichi allegedly lured a spy into revealing his allegiances simply by changing the key of her song. A Yame shows you this too. Her fingers dance across the shamisen, and the melody she plays would sound beautiful to anyone else. But to you, it says, he's lying. He knows. Run. Later that night, the magistrate is found asleep in a garden still breathing. But his letters, gone. He'll chalk it up to wine and passion. You'll chalk it up to flawless kunoichi work. I am disappears for a few days, then reappears dressed as a traveling nun, head shaved, sandals dusty. She hands you a fresh packet of information and asks for nothing in return. When you ask why she does it, she smiles. Because men like him think I'm forgettable, and I love proving them wrong. You report back to your network, your head full of new skills, your worldview slightly ... tilted ... you used to think ninja were blades in the dark. Now you know they can be lace gloves dipped in poison. You used to think seduction was weakness. Now you understand it's a weapon more lethal than steel. As you lay down that night, you can still smell her perfume on the letter she gave you. Not cloying, not floral ... just enough to leave a trace, just enough to make the powerful tremble long after she's gone. You're perched on a temple roof at midnight, breath shallow, body still, watching as a sentry scratches his neck and glances nervously into the dark. He doesn't see you. He won't. You're not here to kill. You're here to vanish. Tonight's lesson isn't about hiding behind a tree or ducking into a crowd. It's about disappearing even when you're being watched. The art the shinobi call tompo, evasion and escape. No more playing dead in the mud or covering yourself with leaves like a woodland raccoon. This is high-level magic, except the only spell is misdirection, movement, an absolute mastery of your own breath. The elders call it becoming the fog, and you're about to learn how. Earlier today, you met with a master named Isuk. He's old, bent like a hook, smells vaguely of camphor and pickled fish. His eyes, sharp as flint. You already know how to hide, he growls. But do you know how to vanish in front of someone's open eyes? He tosses you a black cloth. First rule, darkness doesn't hide you. Light blinds them. He leads you through narrow alleys, demonstrating how a well-placed paper lantern can cast a long shadow that swallows your outline. A guard looks at the light, he says, not the silhouette creeping behind it. You practice for hours crawling behind shifting banners, timing your movements with gusts of wind, masking your footsteps beneath the clatter of festival drums. Then come the tools. You're handed Enko, tiny firework pellets. You crack one in your palm and throw it snap. A blinding flash, not enough to hurt, just enough to shock. Isuk nods. Confusion buys you seconds. Seconds save your life. Next comes uchitaik, hollow bamboo tubes filled with flash powder. You test one by lighting it from a hidden ember and tossing it behind you. Boom. A puff of smoke. You're already gone, slipping over a wall like rain down a tile dot. Mainstream historical fact, shinobi escape techniques were sophisticated and diverse. They used environmental cues, decoys, distraction tools, and psychological tricks to outwit pursuers. Manuals, like the Bansen Shukai, outlined dozens of methods, some as simple as dropping coins to cause a distraction. Historians still argue whether the more theatrical escape, stories like turning into birds or vanishing in a puff of smoke, exaggerated later by storytellers and kabuki plays. But core principles like light manipulation, noise, distraction, and directional deception are well documented and very real. Tonight, you put it to the test. Your objective: break into a heavily guarded estate, mark a doorframe with charcoal, and escape without being seen. Easy? No. Possible? Maybe. You time your entrance with the changing of the guard. You mimic a drunk festivalgoer wobbling through the alley. One torch flickers, the sentry scowls. Just before he barks at you, you trip on purpose and drop a pouch of coins. He lunges. You vanish into the shadows. Marking the door is quick. The real challenge is getting out. They've closed the back gate. Your old escape route is blocked. You use your last trick, Hozutsuno Jutsu, the flashpot technique. You light a small cloth soaked in sulfur and toss it into a brazier. It flares whoosh, and in the chaos, you dart sideways into a decorative pond, slipping beneath a stone bridge. Your breathing slows, your body cools. They search, they curse, they give up. You crawl out an hour later, soaked, bruised, grinning. You pass Isuk on the way back. He doesn't speak, just nods once and disappears down an alley. Your quirky tidbit of the night. Some ninja reportedly carried live crickets in tiny cages during missions. Why? Their chirping would mask quiet movement. But more cleverly, the insects would stop singing if someone nearby moved. Nature's own alarm system. Who knew bugs could be back up? Back in your quarters, you hang your soaked robe by the fire and rub a sore ankle. Vanishing is glamorous in the stories. In real life, it's wet feet, minor burns, and smelling like sulfur for 2 days. But the high, unmatched. You didn't just survive. You controlled the scene. You told the world where to look and then slipped through the cracks. That's not hiding. That's art. And tonight, you painted in smoke. You're crouched in a dry irrigation ditch, staring up at a fortress that wasn't there 5 years ago. Stone walls, iron gates, riflemen pacing on the parapets. You squint. Are those muskets? They are, and suddenly, everything you've trained for feels fragile. Welcome to the age of gunpowder. The world is changing, and tonight, so must you. Your mission? Simple. Test the defenses of this new Tokugawa outpost. Map the patrol patterns. Note the weapons. Find blind spots if they exist. But there's a catch. You're not the only shinobi here, and the enemy, they have guns. This isn't the old battlefield anymore. No graceful blade duels. No slow approaches under moonlight. Just a crack, a flash, and someone's gone. You're reminded of an elder's words. A sword makes a man feel brave. A gun makes a coward feel dangerous. Tonight, you must unlearn half your training. You approach the fortress perimeter after dark, dressed as a humble rice merchant returning from market. Your straw hat droops over your face. You carry a basket of spoiled produce, your blades hidden in the frame. But your real weapon, a hand mirror. You use it to catch glints of torchlight, calculating where the patrols pause and where the gaps form. It's old school, but still effective, until one of the guards fires his weapon, not at you, at something in the trees. The sound alone nearly makes you collapse. It tears the air like thunder, leaving your ears ringing. You understand now. The world has gotten louder. Mainstream historical fact. By the late 16th and early 17th centuries, firearms originally introduced by Portuguese traders were rapidly adopted by Japanese warlords. Ninja, whose techniques relied on stealth, now faced a brutal reality. Their quiet world was dying under the roar of gunpowder. Historians still argue whether shinobi tried to incorporate guns into their arsenal. Some say they adapted quickly, using matchlocks for assassinations and creating new infiltration methods. Others claim gunpowder warfare effectively erased the need for their services. You believe both. You slip through a breach in the outer wall, one only visible from the rice fields when the guard's lantern is turned east. You crawl low, pressed, flat against the earth, and reach the inner courtyard. There, you see it up close, crates of Tanegosha matchlock rifles, dozens, maybe more. You memorize the count, the placement, the angles of their firing ports. Then you do something bold. You leave a mark, not large, just a chalk sigil hidden beneath a windowsill. A warning for future shinobi. Muskets here, avoid. You back out carefully. A patrol approaches. You reach into your sleeve and pull out a small Tetsubishi spike trap and drop it as you slide into the shadows. The guard steps directly on it, howling in pain. He fires blindly. The noise is deafening, but you're already gone, ducking through alleyways, weaving through alleys, scaling walls slick with moss and fear. You rendezvous with your contact in a merchant's warehouse. He's younger than you expected. Terrified. "I thought you people moved like wind," he says, trembling. You smirk. Sometimes wind breaks windows. Now for your quirky tidbit. In response to the gunpowder revolution, some shinobi began experimenting with bamboo silencers for early firearms. Crude, often unreliable, but a sign of adaptation. They also used hollowed gourds filled with gunpowder and pebbles to mimic firearm sounds and cause panic. Fake gunfire, fake panic, real distraction. You wonder if that's what you'll become, a relic, a fake. The last page of a chapter. No one reads anymore. But then Sayo arrives. She's seen it, Toothagun Towers, the rifles, the fortress walls. She looks tired, but not defeated. We're not obsolete, she says. We just need new shadows. You nod tonight. The air smells of saltpeter and iron. But your hands are steady. Yes, the age of steel is fading. But even gunpowder needs a spark, and you're the spark no one sees coming. The air in the capital is too still, like a theatre after the last act, where no one dares to breathe because they're not sure if it's truly over. The warlords have quieted. For now, you stroll the stone streets of Edo in the grey haze of morning, dressed as a bookseller's apprentice. In your basket are scrolls no one will read, and one message hidden in the spine of a fake Confucian classic. You walk past samurai with nothing to fight for, past merchants now wealthier than most nobles, past guards who yawn more than they. Patrol, this is the Tokugawa peace. And for shinobi, peace feels like exile. The shogunate has unified Japan. Castles are no longer besieged, but repurposed. Clan rivalries have been frozen under strict codes. Samurai are ordered to focus on bureaucratic duties, marriages, and calligraphy, and you sit on a rooftop, watching the city churn with predictability. You're not needed, not officially, but you still exist. Mainstream historical fact, Tokugawa, Ieyasu's victory at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600 and the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate brought over 2 centuries of relative peace to Japan. The shinobi, who had thrived in the chaos of the Sengoku era, now found themselves ... unemployed. Historians still argue whether ninja operations continued during this peaceful period. Some claim they were absorbed into Tokugawa intelligence networks. Others believe they faded away, their roles taken over by bureaucrats and informants. And some say they simply went deeper underground. You've seen the truth. Some shinobi adapted, some retired. Others tried to sell their skills to foreign traders, hoping espionage still held value somewhere else. And some drank. In a back alley izakaya near the Sumida River, you find one of your old instructors. He's wearing merchant clothes, his sword traded for a fishing rod, his pride soaking in sake. You sit beside him in silence. He eventually mutters, "There's nothing left to fight for." You gently slide a folded message across the table. A foreign merchant's contact list, smuggled goods, contraband routes, all of it useful to the right client. Maybe not to fight for, you say, but still plenty to uncover. He doesn't smile, but he takes the note. Later that week, you meet with Sayo again, this time in a quiet garden filled with caged nightingales. Their song is too sweet for the hour. Ieyasu doesn't want shadows anymore, she says. He wants mirrors. Same job, you mutter. Different reflection. She nods. We become watchers, whisperers, not warriors. She tells you about the Uniwabanshig, an emerging covert unit rumored to operate under the shogun himself, disguised as gardeners, clerks, even theater performers. Some say it's just a myth. Others say it's us just rebranded. Quirky tidbit of the night. A few shinobi families reportedly became fire inspectors. Yes, really. In a city where fire could destroy entire districts, these inspectors had access to every home and structure perfect for information gathering, sabotage, or quiet disappearances. Say mentions a fire chief in Asakusa who speaks 4 languages and never seems to age. You don't ask questions. Instead, you adjust your role. You become a courier between print houses, a scroll restorer, a poetry contest judge. You gather gossip, track movement, watch the elite pretend nothing ever burned. But inside, you feel it. The shinobi world isn't gone, it's just ... quiet, waiting. You begin to understand, in peace. Your job isn't to fight, it's to prevent fighting. To know what's coming before anyone else does. To track rumors before they grow teeth. And sometimes, just sometimes, to remove a piece from the board before the game changes. You never use weapons anymore, but your words, sharpened daily. It starts as a whisper in a tavern. A fisherman in Osaka claims he saw a man walk straight up a temple wall, then vanish into the roof beams. A child swears she heard footsteps on her ceiling during the night, but the snow remained untouched. A rice merchant insists that his storeroom was emptied by a thief who left no footprints, no fingerprints, and no door unlocked. You chuckle when the rumors reach your ears, because you know the truth. The ninja are becoming ghost stories, and, ironically, the quieter you live, the louder the legends grow. You sit by a fire with sabo, watching a traveling storyteller perform for a crowd of wide-eyed children. He wears a black robe, speaks in hushed tones, and builds tension like a kabuki master. And then the man says, drawing out each syllable, "The ninja disappeared, leaving only the scent of burning incense and a single plum blossom." On the pillow, the children gasp. You and Sayo share a look. She rolls her eyes. Where do they even get this stuff? She mutters, "You know exactly where. From you. Or at least, from people like you shinobi, who have survived long enough to let the myths flourish in their place. Your enemies are vanquished. Your masters are retired. Your name is erased from every scroll, and yet you live on in whispers and firelight, mainstream historical fact, during the Edo period. As the practical role of shinobi diminished, their image grew more supernatural in the public imagination. Kabuki plays, folktales, and woodblock prints turned ninja into magical beings capable of flying, transforming into animals, and defying death. Historians still argue whether this transformation was accidental folklore, a calculated act by surviving shinobi to protect their secrets through disinformation. After all, if the world thinks you can vanish in smoke, it's less likely to notice that you slipped out the window. The line between fact and fiction blurs even for you. You've helped plant some of the myths yourself. Fabricated weapons, forged scrolls, deliberately ridiculous stories about shadow clones and exploding frogs, all part of what the elders called kagemi, no jutsu, art of the false reflection. It works now, even when you're standing still in the middle of a crowd. People see right through you. One day, you encounter a street artist drawing ninja onto a scroll. He's got the outfit, all wrong, tight black suit, face fully covered, 2 swords strapped to the back like a demon warrior. You pause. "That's not what ninja really looked like," you say softly. The artist shrugs. "No one wants to buy scrolls of farmers in ragged robes. They want assassins, gods of death." You sigh, and walk on. Later that week, a minor official approaches you in a tea house. He speaks carefully, too carefully. "I heard you might know how to find someone who can make certain documents disappear." You tilt your head. "Sounds like a myth," you whisper. He leans closer. "They say the ninja still exist, that they live among us. that they never truly died. Quirky tidbit: some shinobi reportedly faked their own deaths multiple times. One even built a hidden compartment in his grave so he could listen to mourners just to be sure they believed he was gone. And when no one came, he moved to a different province under a new name and started again. You think of your own false identities. How many have you used now? 10, 20. You no longer count, because that's the final transformation, isn't it? You're not a person anymore. You're a presence, a suggestion, a half-remembered face in a scroll. Someone burned, and that makes you more powerful than ever. Because what people fear more than an enemy is a story they can't kill. That night, you write a short poem and leave. It tucked beneath the merchant's window. The blade unseen cuts deepest in memory. I was never here. Let them talk, let them wonder, let them believe in shadows that walk through walls and vanish with the wind. It's better that way. You kneel in a dim room lit by a single candle, its flame dancing across the edges of an ancient scroll unrolled before you. The air smells of old ink, worn silk, and something else, something faintly metallic. History, maybe. You're staring at the ban SENSHU dot, or at least a copy dot. It's fragile, wrapped in silk thread. Its characters written in a crabbed hand that seems both rushed and deliberate, like the author feared it would be his last breath and also hoped it wouldn't be. Read for centuries. This is one of the secret scrolls of the shinobi, and tonight you've been granted the rare chance to read it, but only under watchful eyes. An elder sits opposite you, silent as stone, his hands resting lightly on a small blade that never leaves his lap. This isn't paranoia, it's protocol. You turn the page. It's not all weapons and tricks. Some of it reads like philosophy. Strike only when the ripple is small. A man who does not look ordinary cannot disappear. A lie planted deep enough becomes truth in time. You feel your skin prickle. This isn't just a training manual. It's a manual for invisibility of the soul. Mainstream historical fact. The Bansen Shukai, All Rivers Merge into the Sea, is one of the most comprehensive surviving texts on ninjutsu, compiled in 1676 by Fujibayashi Yasutake, an Iga ninja. It contains strategies, weapon designs, disguises, codes, survival tactics, even meteorology. It's part war manual, part spiritual guide. Historians still argue whether the Bansen Shukai was actually used in the field, or if it was a symbolic gesture, an attempt to preserve a fading tradition, like a gravestone etched before death. Some believe parts were never intended to be followed literally. Others see in it the distilled wisdom of generations. You can't decide which. What you do know, many of its tactics still hold up. You test one that very night. A soft entry technique, using a simple distraction and a series of knotted cords. To enter a locked residence, you choose an abandoned temple as your test site. You plant a bamboo wind chime in the garden. Its odd tone causes a guard to investigate. Then you scale the wall, press your shoulder against a loose panel, and enter without a sound. You don't steal anything. You don't need to. The thrill is enough. It works. But the scroll isn't just about tactics. It lists ingredients for poisons and antidotes, hidden messages in flower arrangements, and the best times to disappear based on moon phases. There's even a passage about how to fake a vision from a god to manipulate a superstitious lord, and a detailed method for crafting a candle that extinguishes itself after exactly 10 minutes. You make one the next morning. It works after 15. Close enough, your elder tests you daily. He asks you to memorize a coded poem, then decode it backwards while reciting it aloud. He has you brew a tea laced with a mild sedative, then forces you to drink it so you can learn how to walk, like someone who's been poisoned without actually dying. He gives you a map with 4 errors, and tells you to lead a mission using it. You find 6. He doesn't comment, but you catch the edge of a smile before he turns away. Quirky tidbit: some versions of the Bansen Shukai included blank pages, not mistake straps. Anyone who copied the scroll without permission would reproduce the blanks, thinking they missed nothing. Only authorized readers knew which invisible inks revealed the missing text. You test this. You hold a blank page near the candle's flame. Slowly, characters emerge written in persimmon, juice and iron. Shavings dot the hidden message: even this ink lies. Well played. You begin to dream in code. You wake up thinking of misdirection and disguise. You start seeing patterns in clouds, footprints in floorboards, mistakes in conversations. The scroll has changed you. You no longer want to be a shadow. You want to understand them. You and Seo study together late at night. She's fascinated by the sections on psychological manipulation, how to break a prisoner without ever touching them. You're drawn to the philosophy, how to walk unnoticed, even in a crowd that knows your name. One night, she says, "This isn't a book, it's a graveyard." You look at her, she nods toward the candle. Every page was written by someone who died doing what we're still trying to learn. You nod slowly, and yet, here you are, still reading, still breathing, still becoming. You roll up the scroll, tie the silk cord, and return it to its place in the lacquered chest. The elder bows. You bow deeper. The shinobi arts are fading from the world, but not from you, because tonight you've read the truth behind the myth, and tomorrow you'll write your own. You're walking through a market square at dusk when someone whispers the name Hattori Hanzo. The moment freezes, not because it's rare to hear quite the opposite. His name is everywhere. In ballads, in kabuki plays, on sake bottles and sword shops to the world. He's the ninja of ninjas, the ghost general who guarded Tokugawa Ieyasu and disappeared without a trace. But you know better. The real man was no myth, and tonight you're going to find out who or what he really was. Your assignment is to verify the story of Hanzo's disappearance. A foreign dignitary has requested a ninja-themed tour, yes. Seriously, and your employer wants to ensure the history is just inaccurate enough to entertain, but not offensive enough to invite suspicion. So you head to the Sanenji Temple in Edo, where Hanzo's supposed spear is enshrined. You dress as a monk. You ask questions. You light incense. You listen, but the stories don't match. One priest says, Hanzo died in battle. Another says he became a monk. A third insists he was assassinated by jealous samurai. A fourth, that he never existed at all. Historians still argue whether Hanzo was one man or multiple. Records from the Tokugawa period list at least 2 men with that name, a father and son. Some believe Hanzo became a title, like Shadow Captain, passed down to preserve the illusion of a single immortal figure. You trace the name through temple registries, merchant logs, and clan records. The trail splits, rejoins, vanishes, reappears under different kanji. It's like trying to follow your own shadow through fog, one record says. Hanzo led a daring nighttime evacuation of Tokugawa Ieyasu's family across enemy lines, disguised as a troupe of traveling musicians. Another claims he sabotaged a castle siege using only crickets and a flute. Another says he once swam through a moat filled with oil, carrying 2 messages and a severed ear for proof. You find 0 evidence of the ear, but you do find a hidden journal scratched into the back panel of a ceremonial screen stored in a temple storehouse. The handwriting is fast, purposeful. It reads, "Names are useful until they become dangerous. I have died 4 times this year. I will die again tomorrow. Long live Hattori Hanzo." You stare at the words for a long time, because whoever wrote that knew exactly what they were doing. Mainstream historical fact: Hattori Hanzo, 1542 to 1596, was a real samurai from Iga who served Tokugawa Ieyasu. He led ninja troops, organized intelligence networks, and is credited with several daring rescues. But the details of his life, especially his death, remain murky, overwritten by centuries of theatrical myth-making back in your quarters. You meet Sayo and lay out your findings. She reads the journal excerpt and shrugs. "That sounds like something you'd write." "Thanks," you reply, "I think." Quirky tidbit: the subway station near Hanzo's supposed burial site. It's named Hanzaman Hanzo Gate, and the Tokyo police once had a surveillance division informally referred to as Hanzo's Eyes. Even in the modern world, his legend lingers like perfume in a locked room. Sayo pours you both tea. "Maybe it doesn't matter who he was," she says. "What matters is that everyone believes he was someone, and that belief still protects us." You nod slowly, because Hattori Hanzo isn't a man anymore. He's a message. He's proof that one shinobi, careful, clever, quiet, can become immortal, not in temples, not in songs, but in fear. You sit back, letting the candlelight dance across the tatami floor. You don't need the truth, you need the story, because sometimes stories are stronger than facts. And a name like Hanzo, that's a sword you don't ever unsheath unless you want the whole world to bleed. The blade is silent, but the betrayal screams louder than a war drum. You crouch inside the charred shell of a farmhouse, watching 2 shinobi argue in the rain. They're supposed to be on the same side, same clan, same mission, same training. But something has cracked. Something deep, your contact code name. Hayes was meant to pass along encrypted orders to a Tokugawa courier tonight. Simple relay, routine. But now he's facing off with Reed, another operative from your old IGA network. You recognize the signs. The twitch in Reed's fingers. The way Hayes won't meet his eyes. The low, tense tones. This isn't about disagreement. This is war within the shadows. You shift position silently, listening. You catch fragments of accusation. You sold us out in Gemi. No one else made it out. We trusted you. A name is mentioned. Say, as you feel something twist in your chest. You almost reveal yourself, almost step into the open and demand answers. But a shinobi doesn't move on emotion. A shinobi listens, and tonight the truth is sharp and cold, mainstream. Historical fact. Toward the end of the 17th century, shinobi clans fractured. Without centralized leadership or constant warfare to unite them, many became rivals, selling their services to competing daimyo, sabotaging former allies, and guarding their methods with deadly paranoia. Historians still argue whether these internal conflicts were isolated incidents or full-blown shadow wars. Some scrolls hint at assassinations disguised as accidents. Others reference entire networks collapsing due to a single rogue agent. Tonight, you're witnessing the cracks. You follow Hayes as he flees the encounter, moving through rice fields under moonlight. He doubles back twice, crosses a stream barefoot, and even drops a trail of false footprints. Textbook shinobi, evasion. You don't lose him, because you were trained by the same masters. He enters a shed near the edge of a crumbling estate. Inside, he writes furiously in a ledger. You get close enough to see the symbols. He's tracking fellow shinobi, listing names, ranks, habits, disguises, even yours. You don't confront him. You retrieve a burnt leaf from the hearth and use it too. Press your signature into the dirt outside his window. He'll see it. He'll know he was seen. The next morning, the ledger is gone. And so is he. Sayo finds you days later. She's heard the rumors. Hayes is said to have vanished on the road to Edo, killed by thieves. Maybe, or not. Do you think he turned? She asks. You stare into the fire. I think he broke. She nods, slowly. We all do, eventually. You both fall silent. The days that follow are thick with tension. Missions go unspoken. Trust becomes as rare as clean paper. Your contacts ask for passphrases they never needed before. You're coded. Messages grow more layered, more paranoid. One wrong flick of the brush, and you're marked a traitor. Quirky tidbit. Some shinobi began carrying decoy diaries in their final years, filled with fake operations, false identities, and misdirection. If caught, they'd let themselves be captured, and the enemy would walk away confident, but misinformed. You've started writing one yourself, in it. You've invented an entire second persona, wandering priest named Genzo, who travels with a crippled goose and recites poetry to strangers. No one suspects a goose-poet yet, but deep down, you know the real fight now is not against samurai or muskets or even lords. It's against each other. When the world forgets your purpose, when your enemies become allies and your allies become competitors, what's left? You and Sayo sit in the rafters of a closed kabuki theater that night, watching rats chase one another across the empty stage. Did you ever think it would end like this? She whispers. You shrug. I didn't think it would end at all. She leans her head on your shoulder for the first time in years. You don't move. Promise me, she says. If I ever turn, you know the rest. You don't answer, because shinobi don't make promises. They just remember the moment and store it like a blade behind the ribs, just in case. You're perched beneath the eaves of a crumbling shrine, watching a man pray to the kami for forgiveness before handing over a scroll he promised he never had. The payment he receives is a pouch of silver. The cost, his honor. You don't intervene. You don't need to. You've seen this 100 times before, the slow unraveling. What begins as survival soon becomes compromise. What begins as compromise becomes betrayal. And eventually, you forget where the line was to begin with. You wonder. Not for the first time. Do ninja have a code? Your instructors never said. They taught methods, not morals. Techniques, not truth. There were rules. Yes, don't reveal your mission. Don't endanger the clan. Don't speak names aloud, but those were protocols, not ethics. Now, after years in the field, you're starting to realize shinobi ethics are liquid, bendable, situational, often invented in the moment, and yet, in your heart, you feel a code stirring, something internal, something unspoken, a line you haven't crossed yet tonight. Your mission brings you to a small border town where a courier is passing. Illegal letters between a northern lord and a secret faction of Tokugawa loyalists. You're ordered to retrieve the letters and remove the threat. But here's the catch. The courier is a teenage girl, maybe 15. She doesn't even know what she's carrying, just another innocent pawn. The kind of person the shinobi are supposed to manipulate. You watch her from the rooftops. She feeds stray cats. She hums folk songs. She bows politely to the butcher even when he cheats. Her out of change. She's not the enemy, she's a child. And your target, .sayo, meets you in a lantern-lit alley that evening. You explain the situation. She listens, silent, then says, "You know what they'd tell us to do." "I know," you reply. "So what are you going to do?" You don't answer. Not with words. You wait until the girl leaves her home, then sneak inside. You find the letters in a lacquered box tucked beneath the tatami. You open them, skim, memorize, replace them with harmless forgeries, recipes, gossip, meaningless business orders. No one will know except you. You burn the real letters in a brazier. Behind the temple, she keeps walking, alive, unaware, unchanged. You feel strange, not proud, not guilty, just. Still mainstream historical fact. Unlike samurai, whose Bushido code emphasized honor, loyalty, and open combat, the shinobi were rarely governed by such ideals. Their methods were clandestine, their morals often ambiguous. They were feared not just for their skills, but for their unpredictability. Historians still argue whether the ninja ever followed an organized ethical framework. Some claim Iga and Kōga had internal oaths of conduct. Others believe individual survival always came first, and any code was an invention of fiction and hindsight. That night, you return to camp and report the mission as complete. No questions asked, no scrutiny, no consequences. But Sayo knows. She watches you for a long moment, then says, "You drew a line." You shrugged. It was raining. Quirky tidbit of the night. Some shinobi developed a practice called Kage no Chikaya, shadow vow. It wasn't written, spoken, or sworn before others. It was a personal boundary set in silence, never revealed, only known when tested. You've just made one, and now you carry it everywhere, like a hidden blade in the weeks that follow. You notice others, like you shinobi, who hesitate before killing, who leave warnings instead of poison, who falsify documents instead of striking from the dark. You're not alone. The clan doesn't acknowledge it, but the code of survival is slowly becoming a code of conscience. A new kind of shinobi is forming, not one bound by rules, but by personal conviction. The world no longer needs shadows to fight wars, but it may still need them to protect peace. You wake the next morning with the ghost of the girl's song still echoing in your ears. You hum it under your breath as you sharpen your knife, not for killing, for carving the world into something worth hiding in. The harbor smells of fish, sweat, and the kind of secrets that only cross borders under moonlight. You crouch atop a warehouse roof in Nagasaki, watching a group of cloaked figures load crates onto a flat-bottomed boat. The crates are stamped with foreign symbols Dutch, if you're not mistaken, and they're guarded by mercenaries who look far too alert for dockhands. This isn't smuggling, this is intelligence trafficking. Your orders are simple. Track the cargo, identify the contact, and retrieve any documents that leave Japanese soil. But what they didn't tell you, the foreigner they're meeting is expecting a ninja, apparently. Your reputation has spread across oceans. Funny, once shinobi were so hidden they barely existed. Now, European sailors swap stories about shadow men in the rice fields, slipping through walls and stealing secrets from samurai. It would be flattering if it weren't so dangerous. Mainstream historical fact: Japan, during the Tokugawa era, was officially closed to most foreign influence, but Nagasaki remained a tightly controlled exception. Dutch traders were permitted limited access on Dajima Island, and with them came spices, science, medicine, and questions. Foreign agents became fascinated with Japan's covert operatives. Historians still argue whether any ninja were ever dispatched abroad. Some claim agents traveled with merchants to China and Korea under aliases. Others believe this is pure folklore, exaggerated by trade gossip and embellished by Western fascination. You're not here to debate it. You're here to follow the rumor. You shadow the boat from the rooftops as it drifts along the canal, slipping past checkpoints with forged seals. It docks at a private villa on the outskirts owned by a minor noble who conveniently has no visitors listed in the city registry. That's your target. You wait for darkness, then approach through the mangrove thickets, silent as fog. You scale the rear wall and enter through the smoke vent on the roof. Inside, you smell tobacco, ink, and cinnamon Dutch spices, foreign luxuries. There's a man inside, middle-aged blonde beard, dressed in the long coats of the West. He's alone, except he's not, because the real shinobi, the one assigned to kill him, moves at the same moment you do. You see the flicker of a blade, a flash of silk, and then dash SAYO. Of course. You both freeze, mid-step, staring at each other across the room. Your target between you blissfully unaware. You lower your weapon, so does she. The man finishes his letter, seals it with wax, and sets it aside. He never notices. You meet Sayo on the rooftop after she tosses you a bundle of papers. Everything he wrote, and a bit more. Why didn't you kill him? She shrugs. He's not the threat. The man who sent him is. You nod. Same conclusion. You're seeing more of this lately. Foreign interests paying well for whispers. Port taxes, military placements, rice shortages. They don't want to conquer. Not yet. They want leverage and shinobi. They're starting to become a commodity abroad. There's talk of shinobi being hired by foreign houses to infiltrate Korean courts, Manchu trade guilds, even European ship crews. Sayo knows a woman who posed as a Portuguese nun for 6 months to retrieve a single ciphered journal. Quirky tidbit. One of the earliest recorded ninja sightings by a Westerner comes from a Dutch trader in 1649. He described a man who leapt the city wall with bare feet and vanished into a tree. He blamed it on sorcery or local devils. Most likely, it was a bored courier proving a point. You burn the foreign letters before dawn, not to hide them, to send a message. Whoever requested that intelligence will learn their shipment never arrived. They'll know someone was watching, and maybe, just maybe, they'll think twice. Back in the city, a child runs past you, yelling, "Shinobi," while mimicking climbing a wall with invisible claws. You smile faintly. You've become an export now, a story packed in crates and shipped to foreign lands. But the real you, still here, still silent, still watching. Because while the world trades in shadows, you are the shadow. You wake to the sound of temple bells, distant and slow, tolling like a heartbeat trying to fade. The year is turning, and so is the world. You're in a thatched hut, tucked into the hills near Edo, recovering from a cracked rib and a bruised ego. Your last mission, intercepting a message headed toward a foreign envoy went sideways. Not because of failure, but because of timing. The Tokugawa government is closing ranks. Fast. New edicts, new purges, new suspicion, and whispers of final missions. The Meiji restoration hasn't happened yet, but the smoke is rising. One by one, you hear the stories. Operatives retiring without explanation. Safe houses burned under mysterious circumstances. Former allies suddenly unreachable. You sit with Seo by a frost-bitten stream. Neither of you speaking for a long time. Finally, she says, "I had a visitor last night." You glance over. A Tokugawa messenger, she continues. He said there's a list of names. Survivors, they want them erased. You know exactly what that means. Not scrolls. Not maps. People, the shinobi, are being cleared away. Mainstream, historical fact. As Japan inched toward modernization in the 19th century, the shogunate began eliminating what it considered unnecessary remnants of the feudal era. Ninja, already a controversial asset, became politically inconvenient. Some were folded into intelligence bureaus. Others were quietly eliminated. Historians still argue whether the Meiji Purge directly targeted ninja, or if they were simply caught in the larger tide of reform and centralization. But shinobi records do vanish around this time, long with their villages, trails, and lineages. You return to your old contact in Kōga, what's left of him. He's built like a rice sack now, running a bathhouse and pretending his knees don't crack when he walks. He gives you a letter, not for reading, for burning, but you read it anyway. It's a kill order, the target Seo. The signature is real, the ink fresh, the instructions absolute. She's been deemed an unstable asset with too much operational autonomy. Translation: she's too smart to control. You don't burn the letter. You tear it into strips, feed it to a koi pond, and watch as the fish carry the evidence down to silt. You meet her later beneath the old cedar where you first practiced escape techniques. You hand her a travel pack. She understands immediately. You don't say, "Run." She doesn't say thank you. She vanishes before you finish blinking. And just like that, you commit your first rebellion. Quiet, small, powerful. You're no longer working for the clan. You're working for yourself. Your next missions are different. You choose them carefully. Ones that prevent bloodshed. Ones that expose corruption rather than feed it. You destroy a bribe list hidden in a monk's library. You blackmail a magistrate into pardoning 5 peasants. You fake the suicide of a disgraced official so his family can keep their land. No more letters sealed with wax. Just actions, just impact. Quirky tidbit: some late-period ninja began using Western forgery techniques to mimic official seals. A single convincing stamp could reverse a death sentence. One scroll, forged flawlessly, could shift an entire political tide. The pen didn't just become mightier than the sword, became deadlier than the kunai. You've started forging things to dot, not lies, but truth disguised as lies. A noble you spared sends word through the underground. You still exist, so I can exist. Thank you. You don't reply. You just keep moving. Because while some shinobi accept the Meiji Order's price, you're choosing a different fate. Not retirement, not obedience, not death, but ghosthood. You start erasing your traces, burying gear, dismantling caches, severing ties one night. You find your old name scratched into a wall in a Kyoto Alyssum novice, trying to mimic your legend. You scratch it. out. Then keep walking, because the final mission isn't to kill, it's to disappear completely. Snow falls like quiet ash over the temple rooftops as you kneel beneath a withered maple tree, watching the world forget you. You've been here before, not this place, but this moment. The hush, the fading trail, the vanishing. Only this time, it's not a tactic. It's the end of an era. You were sent here to find someone, an old Iga contact named Shikonosuke. He was one of the last remaining jonin, a high-ranking ninja once entrusted with entire networks of operatives. If anyone knew how to survive this transition, how to fade into legend, it would be him. But when you arrive at the temple in the mountains of Omi, there's no one left to greet you, just a caretaker and a name on a weathered stone. Shikonosuke died 4 months ago, the man says, quietly sweeping snow from the steps. Not from violence, just age. He lived his final days tending the temple garden. No visitors, no letters, just silence. And in that silence, he disappeared. No funeral, no procession, no trace. Only his legacy, which lives in people like you, mainstream historical fact. As the Edo period gave way to Meiji modernization in the late 1800s, many of the last known shinobi simply vanished. Some became monks, teachers, or farmers. Others, perhaps the most skilled, left no trace at all. They didn't retire, they erased. Historians still argue whether the disappearance of so many ninja lineages was deliberate or incidental. Some believe shinobi elders dismantled their own history to protect it. Others suggest the fading was forced, a consequence of political cleansing and the rise of centralized law enforcement. You think it's both. You sit with the temple caretaker over a fire. He's quiet but sharp, offers you pickled daikon and rice. Eventually he asks, "Were you his apprentice?" You don't answer directly. He nods anyway. "I thought so," he says, stirring the coals. He used to stare at the river like it was teaching him something. Said it flowed forward, but carried the past beneath. Later, in Shikonosuke's old quarters, you find a single drawer carved into the floor. Inside, a scrap of silk with a familiar symbol, your clan's crest, stitched in faded black. Beneath it, a small wooden tag, no name, just a line of kanji burned into the wood. The blade ends. The shadow remains. You sit there for a long time, not crying, not mourning, just remembering. And in that stillness, something shifts inside you, because Shikonosuke didn't just die. He chose how. He chose to leave nothing for enemies to twist or idolize. No diary, no scroll, no shrine, just the quiet, the purity of vanishing without applause. You return to the capital weeks later, but only long enough to finish what needs finishing. You tie up every thread. You destroy your decoy identities. You leave fake leads in temple records, suggesting you died in a mountain fire. You scatter false burial relics in 3 separate prefectures. In one, you leave behind a knife. In another, a tooth. In the last, a scroll, blank, quirky tidbit. Some shinobi practiced triple death, a tactic involving 3 faked deaths in different regions, so that pursuers would never know which, if any, were real. The only thing more powerful than dying was leaving behind doubt. You've now performed your own triple death. Even Seo doesn't know where you've gone. She sends one message, just a single character, drawn on mulberry paper and burned after. Reading, the character is Hikari Light. You smile, then vanish. No longer a ninja, not even a shadow. just a memory so well hidden it can never be weaponized. The last real mission is disappearing well enough that no one knows the mission ever ended. The paper is thin, brittle, older than any you've handled before. You run your fingers along its edge, feeling the slight grain where brushstrokes once dried in silence. You're in a bookstore tucked behind a carpenter's stall in modern-day Osaka. Technically, your name is different now. Your posture is different. Your voice changed with age and practice. But inside, you're still there, still shinobi. Even if no one else is, the merchant doesn't know what he's just sold you. To him, it's an old journal, bound in faded cloth, with a cracked lacquer seal. But you know that symbol subtle, pressed into the cover's corner, the triple swirl of the Iga and Kōga pact. You buy it with cash, no questions asked, and now, as you read in the quiet of your hidden garden, the past returns in brushstrokes, pages of entries, some mundane, some encrypted, some clearly forgeries, but one catches your eye. A diary entry written by a young scribe in the court of a daimyo. Today I saw the cook walk through a wall, or so it seemed. She was there, then gone. The rice remained warm. You chuckle. That sounds like a YAM dot. She always did, like theatrical exits. You sip tea and keep reading. The journal speaks of strange disappearances, of whispers in corridors, of a man who left no prints in snow, of a woman who taught herself to walk without casting a shadow. And as you turn the last page, you realize they've become stories now. The shinobi dot, all of them, every shadow, every escape, every quiet moment of decision. They're no longer feared, no longer hunted. They're myth, mainstream historical fact. In the Meiji era, and especially after the Restoration, Japan turned rapidly toward westernization. The feudal class dissolved. Samurai became politicians or clerks, and the shinobi they were absorbed by memory turned into folklore, entertainment, legend. Historians still argue whether any true shinobi lived beyond the 1800s. Some claim a few families preserved fragments of the knowledge, passing it on through oral tradition or coded martial arts, kata. Others believe the last ninja died without an heir taking centuries of knowledge with them. But you know better, because you're still here. You walk the city sometimes, anonymously, watching people shuffle along glowing streets. They wear earbuds now, faces buried in glass rectangles. They chase numbers and status, not scrolls or whispers, but they still fear shadows, still double-check locked doors at night, still tell stories of things that move unseen. You see a boy on the train, reading a manga. The cover shows a masked figure leaping through fire, kunai in both hands, flames caught in his hair. You laugh softly, close enough, quirky tidbit. One of the last documented claims of a ninja sighting came in 1957, when a farmer in Mie swore he saw a man vanish into thin air while climbing a mountain. It was dismissed, of course. People said it was the light, the mist, a trick of the eyes. But the man never changed his story. Neither will you, because even though you've burned the scrolls, changed the names, and erased the trails, you still carry it in every breath, every instinct, every quiet decision not to be seen. Sayo. You never found her again. But sometimes you feel her presence just beyond the alley's turn, or in the way a woman disappears into a crowd like falling dust. And maybe that's how it should be. No final meeting, No goodbye, just ... dispersion, like smoke, like myth. You set down the journal. Somewhere nearby, a wind chime stirs. You smile. The world has moved on, but it still whispers about you in its sleep, and that's enough, because being remembered isn't the same as being found, and you were never meant to be found. You've always known how this would end, not with applause, not with death, but with a choice, a final, deliberate disappearance. Tonight, you sit beneath a lantern's quiet flicker in your garden, nestled between mossy stones and whispering. Bamboo, the tea beside you has cooled, forgotten. The air is thick with the scent of plum blossoms and ancient. Earth. Your last letter lies open in your lap. It's written in your oldest code, one that only a few left breathing could decipher. Not for enemies, not for allies, for her. You don't even know if Sayo will ever find it. That's part of the beauty. You've left it folded behind a loose floorboard in the ruined farmhouse where you once trained together by the tree where she cut her hand and laughed like she'd won a war. The letter doesn't beg, it doesn't explain, it just says, I am not gone. I am everywhere they do not look. You fold it slowly, slide it into its place. Then you begin the ritual. You shave your head knot in mourning, but in renewal you remove the last of your weapons, the double-edged tanto with the sharkskin hilt, the wire-thin garrote still soaked in memory, the pouch of crushed fugu that once tipped a hairpin with death. Each is wrapped in silk and buried beneath the lotus pond, where the roots will forget their names. You change your clothes. No more black dot, no more black dot, no more muted greys or shadow dash dyes. Just plain cloth, washed linen. You are no longer shinobi. You are no longer you, mainstream historical fact. There is no official date for the extinction of ninjas. Their legacy blurred into espionage, police tactics, folklore, and stagecraft. By the early 20th century, they were characters, not operatives. Illusions, entertainers, fiction. Historians still argue whether any original ninja clans survived in secret, passing techniques down through disguised schools or hidden temples. Some modern martial artists claim lineages that trace to Iga and Kōga. Others say those are romantic forgeries, wishful histories sold to tourists, and still, no one is certain, which is how it should be. You walk through the town one final time. No one notices you, which is perfect, because in that invisibility, you are most alive. A child walks past, humming a tune about the nightman with eyes like glass. Her mother hushes her, embarrassed, but you smile. She's not wrong. The myth is stronger than the man ever was. Quirky tidbit in 2003. A capsule collection of Edo-era scrolls was discovered in a sealed wall of a merchant's home. Among them, a list of tasks forbidden even for shinobi, including impersonating the Buddha, speaking an emperor's true name aloud, and using shadow to seduce a priest's dog. No one knows if it was satire, but you can't help wondering. You reach the edge of the river. Remove your sandals, step into the water, barefoot. It's cold, but not cruel, just honest. You keep walking, and the current takes the rest. The name, the missions, the revenge, the glory, all of it dissolves in the flowing silence. You become exactly what they feared, exactly what they revered. Not a man, not even a ghost, but a story too clever to die. The moon hangs heavy above, draped in silk-thin clouds, casting a gentle sheen across rooftops and garden stones. Somewhere, a wooden wind chime sways with the faintest click, like two bones tapping in a forgotten rhythm. You're not outside anymore, though. You're tucked in safe, warm, quiet. The story has ended, but its echo lingers. Let your breath slow, let your chest rise and fall like the tide. Beneath the misted sea, you've followed shadows across centuries, climbed walls that were never meant to be scaled, whispered through bamboo forests, crept over rooftops under starlight, watched empires rise and vanish, and whisper your name without knowing who you truly were. Now, all of it, every mission, every disguise, every whispered goodbyes like smoke, curling gently into the ceiling of your thoughts, fading into softness. There's no need to remember every detail. The past is folded away now. Like a silk robe after ceremony, you are still, and stillness is the final art. Let the world around you fade to hush. The tick of a clock, the distant hush of a car, the whisper of a breeze, or the hum of your fan. Let them all blend into something gentle, like a river guiding you deeper. Because even legends sleep, even ninjas, especially ninjas. So close your eyes. If you haven't already, let the last lantern go out. No enemies, no missions, just peace and the comfort of knowing that somewhere, perhaps just behind the veil of dreams, the shinobi still walk, silent, invisible, and watching over you. Good night, Shadow Walker. Sleep deep.